All right, everybody, welcome into the NFL Seekers podcast. We're going to be finally doing a little bit different things with fantasy. We're going to be doing our NFL power rankings, 32 through 1 today. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk a little football and fantasy. So let's get into it. And how you doing, Dan?
I'm absolutely stoked for this one, man. It's our first podcast that isn't draft or fantasy football talk. It's our first real just NFL breakdown talk, giving our analysis on every team. And this one is it's a big one. We're giving our thoughts and outlooks on every team. And I feel like a lot of this could be wrong and could backfire, but I'm excited. I'm excited to give it a try.
Yeah, this is just our earliest power ranking. We will do one obviously before the season starts, but we wanted to talk. You wanted to go through all the NFL rosters and talk a little bit of football. So should we get on into it?
Yeah, and something I think we want to do throughout the off season is just one power rankings episode per month. Even throughout the season, just kind of doing an updated power rankings episode each month, just kind of giving you our updated thoughts on each team. So I'm excited to do these. But
Yes,
let's get
sir.
into our number 32.
Okay. All right. So number 32, and then these are our consensus rankings. So I mean, me and Danny
Hmm.
went through, and we've agreed. So this is a mutual agreeing on all these. But with our number 32, kind of weird saying, but who comes in last place on our power rankings is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah. So
interesting one. I mean, last year they were so gross, even with Tom Brady. Like we have to put the Bucks low just because of how they looked last year. And on paper, they really aren't that tough of a team. The
no, they got
31st team that we have is kind of the consensus 32, but we have them higher just because I think we're both kind of lower on the Bucks. And we both don't hate Baker Mayfield, but just in the situation, I don't see them doing too much at all.
Yeah, it feels like they're just entering a rebuild and they're kind of in an awkward space with their cap and everything. Um, they do have some really good star talent, but they're getting to the end of their career, and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. So I mean they have a good receiving core. Baker Mayfield is just up and down. He's kind of an emotional roller coaster. And then there is, their defense is it's not bad. They did draft Kalijah Cansey this year, who I do believe has some good pass rushing upside. And then they have Vita Vea, which is a fun, interior duo. But it seems like some of the star players. I don't know if we're going to see Devin White on the team for much longer. I do have a feeling he'll get traded before the end of the offseason. But it seems like they're just now entering a rebuild.
Yeah, it's just they, like you said, they got a lot of veterans that could be decent, but I just could see a lot of them getting moved, and I just don't know how they'll mesh with their young talent coming in. And yeah, their defense could be a little soft at times over the middle. The linebacker core is getting old, and Devin White could be gone, and the secondary is getting a little thin. So I don't know. The
Right.
outlook is interesting. Their division isn't great, so they could be good, but let's get on to our number 31 team, who is the Arizona Cardinals. And I was saying earlier, they're number 32 for most power rankings that you'll see. They're
Yes.
kind of just the consensus projected first overall pick for next year. Actually, they don't have their first overall pick, so it's technically the Cardinals, or sorry, who owns their pick?
They traded.
Texans. Oh no, sorry, they have the Texans pick. I'm never mind.
Yeah, no,
But
I was gonna say
they
no.
have
They
their
traded down.
yeah.
Yeah, so they do have. Yeah, they'll have the Texans first
That
round pick.
confuses me. But yeah, they could have the first and second overall pick if things go their way, I guess. But I don't know. I just don't see the Cardinals doing too much with Kyler hurt. We don't know how long he's going to be out. He could be out the whole season. He could be out just like half the season. So it could be not too bad, but they're in a tough division. And I don't really see that team doing too much with that defense with Vance Joseph leaving. I don't see that defense doing much.
Yeah, no, then yeah, the Cardinals are kind of a disaster. Even like their ownership and everything is just kind of in shambles. In a nice way to put it. I mean, they're I think too on how the NFL Players Association did like the quality of of like food, nutrition, coaches. Like Cardinals came in dead last with that. Um, Kyler, he got hurt towards the end of the season. We don't know when we'll see him. And they're just kind of a disaster. DeAndre Hopkins wants out too. So, they're in a full rebuild. I mean, I do like Kyler Murray when healthy. DeAndre Hopkins is great. Obviously, JJ Watt retired last year. But yeah, they're not going to be a good team, and they are the consensus. All from all the NFL analysts, number 32. But yeah, I'm definitely not high on the Cardinals. I definitely don't love the roster.
Yeah, the roster has a lot of holes, and we're talking about an NFL nowadays where there aren't a lot of bad teams. We should probably get that out of the way as well. Like these bottom teams honestly aren't bad. In normal years, they might be, contending in their division because all
Oh
these
yeah,
teams in the NFL are pretty good nowadays. Like, human evolution, the teams are pretty stacked. But yeah,
oh yeah.
just the Cardinals overall, like their line play, especially they've been working on it this offseason, but their trenches play is what's going to lose them a lot of games this year. Obviously, Paris Johnson coming in is fantastic, but I just think in the end, at the end of the day, the trenches is what's going to kill them this year, and I think they'll work at it a lot next offseason as well.
100%. They'll probably be big spenders next offseason. They'll improve, but this year is kind of a rebuild. Figuring out the roster, getting rid of dead cap. DeAndre Hopkins will be gone next year. I'll save him. I think he's like a $30 million cap hit. So we'll see him next year. But yeah, this year you can kind of write them off. They're not playoff contenders. They're going to be bottom of the league. And yeah, and then getting into our number 30, we're going to have the Los Angeles Rams. And I really don't like the Rams roster. I mean, props to what they did in going all in, and it actually worked. When they got Jalen Ramsey, brought Eric Weddle back, Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr. They went crazy 2 years ago, signed everyone you could possibly think of. It ended up working, and now their roster is a disaster. They're in salary cap hell. They're in a complete rebuild. No one wants to play for them. Bobby Wagner was there for a year. He's gone. But yeah, the Rams don't excite me this year. What they did, with Sean McVay, it paid off. They've got a Super Bowl, but they're in a long rebuild.
Yeah, definitely in a rebuild period, and they're in an interesting spot because they still have Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, so they're going to be competitive and win games. But overall, that Rams team just has a lot of holes, and that defense is going to be really soft. And outside of Aaron Donald, that it's just a big weakness. And I like what they did in the draft in the mid rounds. They brought in a lot of like competitive pieces and dart throws. Especially on the D line, I liked what they paired Aaron Donald with some potential talents on the D line. And so I like what they're building with these picks, but they need a lot more picks, and I think it's going to take them another year to be good. And Matthew
Yeah,
Stafford's a huge question mark.
100%, huge question mark. Him and Cooper Kupp both coming off injuries too. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how their roster ends up doing. But yeah, I think they're a couple of years out from really competing. I think San Francisco is going to own that division for the next couple of years. They got a lot more complete team. They got a great coaching staff. But yeah, Rams not too excited about. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and Steve
let's get
Avila
into.
and Logan Bruss are great second round picks, but they're going to need more for the offensive line to really compete in that division. So we'll
Yeah,
go on to our
100%.
number 29, and that is the Indianapolis Colts. I think we're both kind of just consensus a little bit lower on the Colts in general. Last year was a complete mess. I am on the side that I think they're going to improve a decent amount this year with Anthony Richardson coming in. I think that they're going to start the season really hot because Anthony Richardson is going to be really hard to game plan for, and then I think he
Oh yeah.
might get figured out kind of down the line, and they'll kind of just cool down the Colts in general. But I do think if you guys are betting money, I would bet money early on the Colts. I think they're going to win some games early on and then cool down. But I just don't see that roster really holding out for a full 17 game season. That defense it had a great draft, so they got some good young talent, but it's got a lot of holes after trading Stephon Gilmore, and their best corner is Kenny Moore. So I mean, they've got work to do. It's a long shot for the Colts to be a playoff or division contender with that division. Their division's pretty good, and they got a lot better as well. And yeah, I don't know. The
Yeah.
Colts are kind of just interesting to me. Anthony Richardson's really the only interesting piece to me, actually.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think Anthony Richardson's going to have a lot of learning curves. I don't think he's going to I don't even know do we think, are we sure Anthony Richardson will start week one, or is it going to be Gardner Minshew?
Yeah,
So,
that's another thing with the Colts. You never know with them, man. Like
right.
it's annoying. I mean, he better start, but you never know with the Colts.
Yeah. And I think, Anthony Richardson will have some growing pains. He's definitely got all the upside in the world. He's one of the most athletic quarterbacks we've ever seen. And they did improve their offensive line, which they really needed to. They did get Blake Freeland and added a couple other pieces that'll help solidify that line because it was a disaster last year. They're getting Jonathan Taylor back from injury. So that'll be interesting. I don't think their defense is all that great. It doesn't excite me. I don't think, I think they have a lot of good pieces, but I mean, I don't really feel like they have much star talent. Um, but I think the Colts could win a little bit more games than where we have them ranked. But I think they're going to have a lot of growing pains, with their quarterback position, and they're going to rely heavily on the run. But I do believe and trust Shane Steichen. He's one of my favorite coaches in the NFL, so I am excited to see how they play.
Interesting young team for sure. Great
Mhm.
draft they had.
Yeah, for sure. They had a million picks and they did fantastic with it.
Let's hear our 28.
So number 28 is going to be the Washington Commanders, and kind of another team that's just kind of awkwardly in a rebuild. Um, they do have some good talent, all across their line. Um, I mean, their defensive line is fantastic. They've always had a good defensive line. They got good star talent at wide receiver, but the quarterback position is a big question mark for me, and I think that's what's going to hold them back a lot. You know, I mean, are we expecting Sam Howell to come in? And I mean, Sam Howell was good, and he did have a really good season in college, but is he going to start or is it going to be Jacoby Brissett? It's going to be interesting.
This really just comes down to Sam Howell. That's the reason the Commanders are
Yeah.
28. It all just comes down to Sam and Howell, man. They could be a lot higher on this list because their ceiling depends on their defense. Their defense could be really good. Bringing in those two rookies, Emmanuel Forbes and Jartavius Martin in the secondary, the Washington Commanders secondary could be really good and their defense could carry them. And it all depends on Sam Howell. If he breaks onto the scene and actually breaks out and does good, then the Commanders could completely make us look stupid and be a bottom half of the tens team, like around the 20s to the 15. Like they could be a pretty good team with that defense. Ron
Yeah,
Rivera needs to prove some things, but yeah, Sam Howell's good. It all just depends on him.
they do have a really good team, like they actually do have a pretty built roster.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it's too risky to take the high road on Sam Howell when we haven't even seen him play an NFL snap, really. I mean, so it's going to be interesting. I mean, who knows? Maybe he has a Brock Purdy type, season or something, and he just breaks out onto the scene. I mean, um, he was pretty good in college. Then I think he went back and played his senior year, and his draft stock just collapsed. Um, but yeah, Sam Howell, it's going to be interesting, and so I do like the Commanders as a sleeper team to bet on because I mean there's a good chance they're in the NFC, they could make a wild card spot, so we'll see.
Yeah, the
All depends
Commanders
on
are definitely a team I could see making us look stupid with this ranking. It's just it all comes down to Sam Howell. And I mean, there's a lot of good quarterbacks in the NFL, so that's the reason that they're this low for us, I will say. And coming in at
100%.
27, it's the Atlanta Falcons who are really close, really close. It was hard to choose. With the Commanders, pretty similar teams, but we're just so excited for Arthur Smith with Bijan Robinson coming in and Kyle Pitts and Drake London. They've just hit their last few years of picks in these drafts, and they're an exciting young team. And I think with that division, they have a chance to win it, man. They're right up there with the Saints and Panthers. They're all going to be neck and neck, and their chances should be pretty good. They're betting odds, so I
Oh
like.
yeah, for sure. Bet on the Panthers running for 3,000 yards. I mean, not the Panthers, the Falcons, because I mean that Arthur Smith is an absolute genius in the run game. They have absolutely a fantastic offensive line. Their running backs. I mean, they had a team that I think in rushing efficiency had Tyler Algier as the sixth best running back in rushing efficiency. And now they just got a generational talent in Bijan Robinson. So that's going to be fun to see what they dial up with him. And who knows about Kyle Pitts? Hopefully he takes another leap forward. But then again, this is just another team where we're going to look at the quarterback and Desmond Ritter, who's very unproven. And if I'm a betting man, I'm not betting on Desmond Ritter to be very good. I would have loved to have seen them like pursue Lamar Jackson or something this year, even draft a quarterback. Because I'm just not too high on Desmond Ritter. I don't know how high his ceiling can be. But I do love the coaching staff. I do love the rest of the team, and I do love that run game, and it's gonna be exciting to see.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the Commanders and Falcons are really close. They're definitely in the same tier because of Sam Howell and Desmond Ritter being really close prospects, and their teams are in similar spots. And yeah, the Falcons do have an exciting young defense now too. They brought in like veterans like Calais Campbell and the corner from Ohio State, Okuda, and then they
Mhm.
drafted Clark Phillips, who will start in the slot immediately and have a great role and be one of the better slot corners immediately. So I love the outlook for the Falcons, and their defense is going to be much improved. So
Oh,
let's get
I'm
into
super excited for this team. I think they have all the potential in the world, but I'm not betting on Desmond Ritter. So that's kind of why we have them low. I think it's all depends on quarterback play, but who knows? I mean, I wouldn't mind Taylor. I think Taylor Heineke could go in and lead them to a playoff spot. I just don't know if they're gonna want to develop Ritter and see what he can do.
Yep, and let's get into the next team who is also in the same tier with them, same division. Carolina Panthers, really similar spot, and it's really hard to rank them. They both could win the division, and if certain things go their way, Panthers have a lot of new moving pieces, I'll say, with a new rookie quarterback coming in, completely new coaching staff coming in. It kind of reminds me of the Broncos last year, so it could take some time. Some learning curves could happen. That's the only thing I think really holding the Panthers back. They've got a great roster, and that defense with Ojero Evero coming in coaching is going to be really, really, really solid. And JC Horn's a lockdown corner. They've got some great pass rushers. I think the Panthers are going to surprise some people and be a hard team to play every week.
Yeah, they added some fun pieces, in free agency and in the draft. I mean, obviously having the first pick and getting Bryce Young, who kind of both reminds us of a Joe Burrow type, maybe just a little bit more slim frame and smaller, but plays like Joe Burrow. So, and pairing him with with a quarterback guru, like Frank Wright. So that's really exciting. I think they got two really good coaches. They signed a good veteran receiver for Bryce Young and Adam Thielen, drafted Jonathan Mingo. They still have DJ Chark, Laviska Chenault. Last year they drafted in the first round Ike Ekwonu, who's an awesome tackle. And yeah, they got some great defensive pieces too. So and with Elijah Evero coaching, who came out of nowhere last year and had the Broncos didn't skip a beat without missing Vic Fangio, and Evero just picked up and made the team look better than ever. So they are a young, exciting team. And I think we did, rank them about right. But yeah, they're just going to have some learning curves. And I think, they're a year or two out before they're real playoff contenders.
Yeah, completely new coaching staff. So that's the only thing holding them back and having them this low. But yeah, their draft was really fun. Like you said, bringing in Chandler Zavala, pairing him back up with his college teammate Ike Ekwonu on that left side is going to be really fun. And then I think Jonathan Mingo is going to be a great starter for them down the road. I have no doubt about that. So I
Oh yeah,
love that.
Bryce Young's got a great deep ball, and Jonathan Mingo can run the go route better than anyone coming out of this draft. So it'll definitely be exciting to see that deal.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that young duo for sure. And then our number 25 team is going to be the Chicago Bears, another team kind of in a similar tier as these other teams we're talking about, but it all just depends on that quarterback, man. If Justin Fields can take that step up as a passer, then they can be a really, really dangerous team because they improved that offensive line, they improved the defense, they improved the team. They got Fields some real weapons, so he has no excuses now.
Yeah, no, I look so forward to seeing the Bears this year because I mean I think they're kind of that boomer bust team. Matt Eberflus, he's an interesting coach. I'm excited to see him go into this year and see what he does. Um, but yeah, I mean, they got the line. They invested in the line for Justin Fields, which is just fantastic. Drafting Darnell Wright in the first round, trading down. Tevin Jenkins should improve this year. They traded back down and got DJ Moore. That's absolutely awesome. That was such a great steal for them to pair him with Justin Fields. They traded for Chase Claypool last year. They got Darnell Mooney. All the pieces are there on offense. And I think they have one of the most underrated running back cores. I mean, they got three legit starters at running back. And then, that defense, I think, that it's kind of the Bears have always had that nitty gritty, kind of like the Broncos and Ravens where, you know, they're always just going to be kind of a good defense,
Mhm.
you know. So they invested heavily in some expensive linebackers this offseason. Getting the number one Tremaine Edmonds from the Bills. So I think they improved a lot this offseason. We just need to see him put it all together and see Justin Fields take that next step. We all know Justin Fields is, one of the best runners in the league. Let's see if he can develop his arm a little bit.
Yep. This is the team in the NFL with the just ridiculous, stupid potential that could just, the sky's the absolute limit with all of them. So
100%.
let's get on to our number
All right.
24 team who we're really high on. It's a team we're high on. I'll let you talk about them.
Yeah, I'm excited about this team, and I think you are too. Yeah, with the Houston Texans. They're super young, new coach. They're in they're a complete rebuild. They brought in C.J. Stroud. I mean, they pulled off one of the coolest draft day, scenes ever. It was kind of reminding me of the movie Draft Day.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like, holy, they're on the clock, and we want our picks. And they got C.J. Stroud, their quarterback of the future, and then they traded back up to they had pick number 2 and 3, and they traded up and got Mr. Will Anderson. Just two pivotal pieces that can be. You look at these two, and there's no reason they can't be all pro players in this league one day. And they're young, they're studs, and that they got a really young, bright, up and coming coach in D'Amico Ryans, who me and you are super excited about. But I mean, the sky's the limit for this team. Obviously, they're going to be young and have some growing pains. That's why we still have them in the late 20s. But the sky's the limit for this team, and me and you are both looking forward to what the Texans can do.
Yeah, just such a fun offseason, man. Bringing in two literal cornerstones of their franchise, one cornerstone for offense, one for defense, and a great, great young defensive minded young head coach. I just love what they're doing. I love the direction the culture and the team's going in. And we've been talking a lot about cultures in this podcast, and it really does affect these teams. And I think D'Amico Ryans is going to have a great one in place, and it'll help Stroud even on offense. And I just really do think the Texans will be very much improved this year, if not the most improved team in the NFL. And I think they're going to be fun. They're going to be competing in that division.
Yeah, and I'll just tell you, this is for a young rookie quarterback coming into the NFL. He's got one of the most friendly offensive lines you'll see. I mean, at left tackle, you got Laramie Tunzel, left guard, Kenyon Green. So those, two first round, awesome starting caliber players. I mean, Laramie Tunzel was one of the best offensive linemen, left tackle in the league. Kenyon Green was a first round pick last year with all the potential. Drafted Juice Scruggs a little early, but I think he's going to be very solid. Shaq Mason and then Titus Howard. I mean, that is there's not really a weak spot on that line, and that's exactly what you want for a young quarterback who's going into his first year and to develop. They brought in Dalton Schultz in free agency too. They got a great running back in Dameon Pierce, and they're young and they're exciting. So, and with a defensive head coach, it's gonna be fun. One of the most slept on free agency signings too was Jimmy Ward, and I think coming from San Francisco with D'Amico Ryans, it's awesome. I'm excited. I think they have a solid chance to win their division and possibly make the playoffs, even with this young of a team.
Yeah, their secondary is going to be much improved, and yeah, they just had such a fun offseason, and I love the direction they're going in.
100%. All
And
right,
like you said, I mean, no one talks about it, but their offensive line is built perfectly. It's all five is just perfect. It's a quarterback, a young quarterback's dream that's trying to develop. I love it.
Barring no injuries, that could be a easy top 8, top 10, line in the NFL. There's really not a weak spot on it, so it's gonna be exciting to see. They're kind of my crush team this season. So I love the Texans. I love the culture they're building. It's gonna be fun.
All right, let's get into our number 23 team. That is the New Orleans Saints. We're higher on them, I guess, because we have them winning their division technically. So I guess
No.
that's Saints fans can't be mad at us. But yeah, that division's pretty rough.
It is.
It's going to be competitive. It's going to be a crapshoot at the top with the Panthers, Falcons, and Saints to see who wins it. I don't know. It's probably whoever's quarterback stays healthiest, really.
Yeah, Derek Carr, he's not, too injury prone of a quarterback. And I think he's going to go in there, win enough games, just to get them to the playoffs. I think they will win that division. It's that division is a total shit show. It's not good, compared to the rest of the divisions in the NFL. But they'll probably end up making the playoffs, in my opinion. But I mean, they do have some good pieces on their team. I'm really looking forward to Chris Olave stepping into year two. Michael Thomas, crossing our fingers, plays for the first time in 3 years. Alvin Kamara is a total mystery, but they do have two good running backs behind him with Jamal Williams and drafted young rookie and Kendre Miller. But yeah, they're gonna be interesting. I don't really know. I can't really put a number on how many wins I think, but I think they're gonna be below 500 and possibly make the playoffs.
Yeah, they're both of our favorites to win that division. It'll be close, but they do have. I mean, if Derek Carr does click with Olave and Kamara and Michael Thomas, then that is really some star power. So,
oh, for sure, yeah, for sure. It's definitely gonna be exciting to see him. But yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable putting him any higher than 23.
And then coming in at number 22, we got the Green Bay Packers, another team with question marks at quarterback. They got first-year quarterback Jordan Love, and we both are higher on Jordan Love. We both liked him coming out of college. It's going to be interesting. I think this is probably the highest I'd rank the Packers, or maybe 21-20 is the highest I'd rank the Packers. You're seeing them ranked higher elsewhere. I don't think I'm going to go that high, but as someone that liked Jordan Love, I will say that the Packers can compete with the Vikings and the Lions, maybe, but they're not going to win the division. They could be, just a fun young team that competes with teams, but I just don't see them making the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. We haven't got a big enough sample size of Jordan Love. We both were high on him coming out of college. He definitely needed time to develop. And he sat behind the perfect guy. So sat behind Aaron Rodgers. Hopefully, he learned something. But yeah, I think they could be. I think they could be a sleeper team. But 22 is about the highest. I wouldn't put them any higher than that because it's just they're such a mystery. But yeah, I mean their pieces are interesting on their team. I mean their offensive line. They do have David Bakhtiari, one of the better offensive linemen in the league. Other than that, it doesn't really impress you too much. They did draft two young rookie tight ends who are going to be interesting. I think they both have a lot of potential, Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, but we'll just have to see. And then their wide receiver core really hasn't improved too much. They did add Jaden Reed, who I think is a fun player, a fun slot player. And then, their defense, I think they have a pretty solid defense. I think they've invested pretty good in their defense, but they're kind of that mid-range.
I think you summed it up good when you said we'll just have to see. I think that sums it up perfectly. I think the Packers 100%. Are kind of we'll just have to see as a whole team in general.
Yep, exactly.
And Jordan Love embodies that, obviously. I mean, they're really just a we'll have to see team because they're hard to project right now.
100%. And with that, let's shift into 21, who we have the Las Vegas Raiders. Another team who I definitely would think would be the worst in the AFC West. Especially with all the star power that's in the AFC West, I wouldn't feel comfortable ranking them any higher. I think they'll finish fourth in the AFC West. Jimmy Garoppolo, going against Patrick Mahomes twice a year, Justin Herbert twice a year, and Sean Payton with Russell Wilson twice a year. It just doesn't seem like a match made in heaven for the Raiders. I know Devontae Adams is frustrated. He didn't want to see Derek Carr get traded. I kind of feel like, their culture is just not very healthy and not very good right now. And just for those reasons, you can't rank them too much higher, even though they did have a good draft and they do have some good players. I mean, Devontae Adams is probably the best wide receiver in the NFL. They drafted a fantastic young edge rusher to pair with Max Crosby. So the talent is there. I just don't think the culture's there with them.
Yeah, in my opinion, like you said, Tyree Wilson's a scary player pairing with Max Crosby. But outside of those two, their defense is just what is holding them back and why they're so low. Their offense really could be good and be so streaky that it surprises some people. And they're, last year they were like top 16 in some power rankings at some points of the season. And some points of the season they were bottom half of the 20s because they're just so inconsistent. But their offense can be pretty good. And I think they'll be an inconsistent team again because of that defense. And ultimately they come in at 21 because of that. Jimmy Garoppolo is Jimmy Garoppolo. He'll be fine. He'll run the show, but he just won't elevate it too much. And
Exactly.
that's just what holds them back and puts them at 21. That's why we both think they'll finish fourth in the AFC West.
100%. And with that, getting to number 20, who we have the Tennessee Titans. And they're kind of an interesting team, you know. I think we both kind of have mixed emotions with them. But it'd be hard to not put the Titans any lower just because they have such a great coaching staff. Mike Vrabel just seems to make whatever he has work every year. The defense is always so solid. They always play better than they should. Derrick Henry is going to be Derrick Henry. You know, you can hand the ball off to him 40 times a game and win games. I mean, there were some times last year where they had Malik Willis who couldn't even complete a 5-yard pass, and they were still competing against the Chiefs. So, you know, for that reason, you know, it'll be interesting to see if Will Levis ends up getting a start sometime this season, but it'd be hard to put him lower just because of the culture and the coaching staff.
Exactly. Mike Vrabel is one of those coaches that seems to have the Titans in every single game, no matter what, they'll be in it. And that's just how he is. It doesn't matter who's on defense. He'll plug them in and they'll play fine. Personnel's never really mattered with him. And that's why we're higher on them than consensus, because Mike Vrabel is going to coach them up, and they do have Tannehill and Derrick Henry back healthy still. It's not like they're gone. So I think the Titans are being slept on for sure just because they're kind of a boring team, but they're going to be pretty solid this year, and I think they're going to surprise people by how much they compete.
100%. They just have a solid defense that always plays consistent. And so for that reason, you know, you just can't have much lower than that, in my opinion.
Yep. And then coming in at 19, we've got my favorite team, the Denver Broncos. I'll say they're really close with their 18 and 17 teams. This AFC is just a slugfest, man. It's just so many good teams, just powerhouses. And if most of these teams that we're talking about right now were in the NFC, they'd be like the top team in their division. So it's just crazy. But the Broncos overall, with Sean Payton coming in, it is intriguing with how bad Russell Wilson was last year. You can look back at it, and a lot of it was on, you know, just his situation and the coaching, and it wasn't all on him. He wasn't the worst, and I think he can improve and be better with Sean Payton, just putting a completely different and better situation around him with Javonte Williams healthy and the offensive line kind of getting revamped, and they had terrible injuries last year. So I think the Broncos will improve and be a legit team that isn't a laughing stock like they were last year with those expectations. But I think Sean Payton is a respectable guy, and he's not going to take any crap for Russ. And I just think he'll hold Russ accountable, and they'll be a much improved team. And Vance Joseph coaching the defense is something that people need to talk about, and that is why we have him so low, because it's a downgrade to Ejiro Evero, who's really one of the best coaches in the NFL last year, and he elevated that Broncos defense a lot. And the Broncos were a really good defense, and I don't think they're going to be as good this year, but they'll still be pretty solid.
That does hurt the Broncos a lot, you know, with Vance Joseph and losing such a great defensive minded coach. It just doesn't make a lot of sense why they just didn't rehire Evero.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, whatever. But you know, the Denver Broncos are such an intriguing team. It's not like they have a pretty built roster. There's not a lot of weak spots on the team. And just all depending on how Russell Wilson plays and bounces back with Sean Payton, is just they can compete with any team. There's no reason the Broncos can't go into every single game and compete. It all depends if Russ has a bounce back season and how he plays. Because I mean, the whole you know, it's a built team. The offensive line is good. The receiving core is good. The running back's good. The defense is always good for the Broncos. It ultimately just for me comes down to coaching staff and how Russell Wilson plays. But there's no reason they couldn't be higher on this list. This is just a safer spot to put them. But you know, they have all the potential to be a top 10 team. It's just, you know, coaching staff and Russell Wilson. So we'll see.
Yep, that's the theme with this tier of teams we've been talking about. It all really just depends on the quarterbacks, and that's on how they do. And that's a good transition into our number 18, which is the New England Patriots. And I really do think they're going to be an improved team this year with Bill O'Brien. With Bill O'Brien coming in as the offensive coordinator, he has a connection with Mac Jones at Alabama. I think they're going to be a more legit offense with better schemes and play calling. And I think Ramondre Stevenson's a monster, and that Patriots team is going to be pretty good. And we have them above the Broncos and Titans because of Bill Belichick. That coaching staff always finds a way. They always are in games, and their division's really tough. So I could see them losing more games than the Broncos, but I just think they're going to be in a lot of games and be a really competitive football team every week.
100%. When you have the greatest coach of all time, it's hard to not ever be competitive. I mean, and the Patriots have a top 5 defense, no matter how you slice it, their defense is fantastic, and they improved it this year. Adding Christian Gonzalez is absolutely huge for that defense. I mean, and they only get better every year. Their defense is just amazing. It only gets better. But yeah, it all ultimately comes down to quarterback play. If they still had Tom Brady, or if they had a Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert on their team, they would be Super Bowl contenders every single year. So the only thing holding them back is quarterback. And yeah, that seems to be the theme with all these teams we've been talking about, is just quarterback play. And it's going to be interesting, but and I know we're not supposed to talk about fantasy this episode, but get the Patriots defense, because they are amazing and they're only going to be better this year.
Yep. Certainly. And another team in this same tier that we're talking about that just has a pretty set and loaded team. It all just depends on that quarterback, is the Pittsburgh Steelers, man, with Kenny Pickett. They are an exciting team, and they had a great offseason, a great draft with some steals, probably the best draft when you consider value. And I just think Pittsburgh Steelers are an exciting team, and it all lies on Kenny Pickett, man. If he can be good, then this team can definitely carry him to the playoffs. And it's tough, man. The AFC, like I said, is just so tough that the Steelers, Patriots, Broncos, Titans, Raiders are all in that tier where they could be really, really good, but they're going to be competing against each other, and it's going to be a murderer's row over there.
Yeah, it's just crazy because you'll look at who makes the playoffs in the NFC, and you'll see who doesn't make the playoffs in the AFC, and you're just like, wow. If you had the Broncos, Steelers, and Patriots all in the NFC, they'd probably all be locks for the playoffs this year. So it is just crazy. But yeah, the Steelers, again, like the theme of the Patriots, a Hall of Fame coach, with a young star improving team. I think they had a great draft. I think they had a great offseason. I think Kenny Pickett, showed enough last year, and I think he'll probably take another step this year. They're an exciting team. They're definitely a sleeper team. They definitely have a tough division. They gotta play against a really, really tough division with two of those teams are probably top 10. But yeah, it all depends. They were I think they were a game away from the playoffs last year, and it's just kind of crazy. It just seems to be the theme of this podcast, is just who's got the little bit better quarterback play that'll elevate the team.
Yep, that AFC is just so tough. I'm excited to see who comes out of it. But let's get on to our next team, and that's going to start a new tier of NFC teams, and that is the New York Football Giants, coming in at 16. And man, Dable had them playing so good last year, and they were just so competitive in every single game. And I feel like the 16th spot kind of fits them perfectly, because that's just kind of where they are as a team. They're just kind of, right in the middle, and they're just going to be in every game. They're going to be annoying every week. They're going to be a tough opponent. They're going to upset a lot of teams. And I just think Dable elevates that team so much. And we saw how good Daniel Jones was playing last year. He was playing some really good football, and he's looked like a really good quarterback. And I think the draft that they had, John Michael Schmitz and Deontay Banks coming in, will be really big impacts day one. So I love the Giants, and I think they're going to be a playoff team this year for the NFC.
Yeah, 100%. I think they'll end up being a wild card team. 16 just feels perfect because they are just a middle of the pack team. That's what you said. That's how they feel. They're going to be kind of a tough, rugged team that, with good coaching, a pretty filled out roster, that's just going to be in every game. And yeah, it all depends on how far, again, Daniel Jones can take him. He played really good last year. He got himself a bag. And yeah, and all depending on health with Saquon. But yeah, they got a pretty filled out roster, and I'm excited to see them, because I think they're going to be even more improved this year.
Yep. And then coming in at 15, we've got a team that's right there with them, really similar in the same tier, the Minnesota Vikings. They're a good team, man. They're going to be competitive. I think their defense is going to be much improved with Flores coming in, and I think they've got some decent pieces there. And I think TJ Hawkinson really was a difference maker for them last year. And I think their offense is going to be much improved with Addison opposite of Jefferson. I think that's going to be a really fun duo, man. The more I think about it, I want to get Addison in all my fantasy leagues, just because I think day one as a rookie, he's going to be really good and scoring a decent amount of touchdowns while teams are just focusing so hard on Jefferson.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it was crazy. Justin Jefferson was still getting, though, I mean, it felt like 20 targets a game, even while he was being double, triple teamed. But I think Jordan Addison plays very similar, and I think Kirk Cousins will, you know, he'll become, one of his safety blankets, and it's going to be interesting. Be interesting to see if Dalvin Cook is still on this team by the time we start the season. Um, but yeah, I do really like their coach. I like their coaching staff. I do really like their GM as well. And I think it's just it all depends on health and how good Kirk Cousins can play. And I think I kind of feel like he's kind of towards the end of his career. I feel like, we might see maybe this might even be his last year on the Vikings. It kind of seems like they've been trying to move off of him.
Yeah, this is definitely it for the Vikings. They've got to go all in for the Super Bowl. This is it. So hopefully they can hit their ceiling. But coming in at 14, it's another team in that same kind of tier as these other NFC teams we're talking about, and that's the Seattle Seahawks. We're both a little higher on them, but man, they were so fun last year, and they have blown the last two drafts completely out of the park. Props to John Snyder. He's one of the best GMs, and just that Seahawks roster has just gone after losing Russell Wilson and thinking they were going to be a disaster. They've gone to one of the best rosters in the NFL. They've just such a great job by that front office. And this team is really, really built well, and their offensive line's built well after getting those tackles last year. And Jackson Smith and Jigba, Charbonnet coming in. I mean, it's Devon Witherspoon pairing with Tariq Woolen. The outlook for this team is just so fun, and the ceiling is just limitless with if Geno can play like he did last year.
Yeah, I'm almost like getting higher on them the more we talk about them, because they seem like they have one of the most built rosters with one of the best depth in rosters, and there seem to be three deep at every single position with talent, and it's pretty impressive. The way they've rebuilt their offensive line in the past couple of years is pretty amazing. They got one of the most young, exciting receiving cores we've seen in a long time. I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba being the third wide receiver is pretty awesome. And then they got two bell cow running backs, and then a great defense with two ultra star power corners. You mentioned Tariq Woolen and first round pick Devon Witherspoon. So, and I mean, even their defensive line has improved a lot, and they got a very underestimated guy last year in Uchenna Nwosu, who's very slept on. So, I think maybe towards the can't even talk. But the sooner we get to the start of the new year, I think they might rise a little on my board.
Yeah, love the Seahawks outlook. They're going to be a fun team. And then coming in at number 13, we've got the Cleveland Browns, an interesting team. It all just depends on Deshaun Watson, man. If he can be good, then this team is going to be great because they're constructed so well and they just are stacked, and their defense is good. Their offensive line might be the best in the NFL. And I think Elijah Moore coming in is going to be really fun. And I think Deshaun Watson is going to be a lot better than last year. He was so bad last year, and I've watched Deshaun Watson for years. He's not that bad. He's a really good quarterback. So I think Stefanski's a pretty good coach, and I think the Browns are going to be back this year. They're going to be good.
Yeah, there's no reason they shouldn't be a top team in the NFL with that roster. It is so well built. And just even a week ago, they traded for Zadarius Smith, who's going to be an ultra fun, piece to that defense. And then also adding Cedric Tillman. So there's no excuse for Deshaun Watson this year. Obviously, he hadn't played football in a few years with his legal stuff going on, but this team depends on Deshaun Watson. He'll take them as far as they'll go as far as he takes them. So I mean, who knows? Watch out. They could be a playoff team with serious potential to be contenders, just depending on how Deshaun Watson plays. And it's not like we haven't seen an MVP season from Deshaun Watson before, so they're exciting.
And before we get into our number 12 team, I do want to say the Browns are our 9th AFC team. So we have them just barely missing the playoffs. And coming in at 12, we've got the Detroit Lions, one of the most hyped up teams in the NFL. They are our 4th NFC team. So our 4th NFC team is coming in at 12. If that kind of shows you the difference of the AFC and NFC, the AFC is very, very strong. And that's why some of these AFC teams were pushed down, because it's just so competitive. It's going to be hard, man.
Oh, 100%. The Detroit Lions, again, kind of like the Texans were kind of my sweetheart team, in the 20s. right here, the Detroit Lions are my other sweetheart team. I'm so excited. I absolutely love the culture that Dan Campbell has built there. Kind of a tough, rugged football team. Um, and their draft was definitely interesting this year, but they drafted Jack Campbell, who just feels like the most Dan Campbell guy, just a rugged guy in the middle of that defense. And boy, did they improve that secondary too, with getting Brian Branch in the second round, which I think was the steal of the draft. But they're such an exciting team. Their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, is one of most young and upcoming dudes. He'll be a head coach next year, 100%. He should have been this year, but he wanted to stick it out and see where the Lions could go, if that tells you something. So ultra exciting team. I'm so excited to watch them play.
Ben Johnson coming back is huge. That offense was one of the best in the NFL last year, and they're getting more pieces in this year, so they're going to be a great team, and they're going to be electric. And then NFC, they're going to light it up. I think that we both think they're going to win that division too over the Vikings.
100%. And yeah, coming in at number 11, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. Another young, exciting team with, an amazing quarterback that's only going to get better. Really built out the roster this year. Really filled in their depth pieces. They're so fun. They're so exciting. They got Calvin Ridley, who's joining that squad, which is just ridiculous. And they got him for pennies, on the dollar of what he should have been worth in a trade value. So I think Trevor Lawrence from last year is going to take an even bigger leap. And I think, there's no reason this team can't be a contender. From top to bottom, they've got really good depth pieces, and Doug Peterson's one of the better coaches in the NFL.
Yeah, after getting a win in the playoffs last year, the outlook of this team is just so fun, and they're going to be such a good team. And like we
Don't
saw
talk about that.
We don't talk about that
soon.
Chargers game, but like we saw against the Chargers and like we saw against the Cowboys, this offense can catch fire and just completely light the scoreboard up, and it's going to be fun. Bringing in Calvin Ridley, he's just going to completely open up that offense and make everyone better around him. And I'm really excited to see the Jaguars, and I hope that defense can step up, because that's the only thing having them outside of the top 10.
100%. All right. And then leading into that, we're going to be with our number 10 team getting into the top 10. We got the New York Jets. And this is a team that had one of the better defenses in the NFL. They had a fantastic run game. And they got some really, really good young receivers, up and coming receivers. And they just added their quarterback. So, they got Aaron Rodgers, and, that to me, I think their roster was a top 10 roster last year. And now you got, a quarterback that is not gonna hold you back. And, there's no reason they can't compete for that tough, first seed in the AFC East, against the Bills and everything. So it'll be exciting to see them.
That roster really is just loaded, and with Aaron Rodgers coming in there, the sky's the limit, because that defense has the potential to be the best in the NFL. That's a crazy defense. And with Breece Hall coming back healthy, with Garrett Wilson pairing with Aaron Rodgers, the sky is the limit with the Jets as well. And we're getting into that top 10 tier where any of these teams could be legitimate Super Bowl contenders. And I could see it with the Jets. I really could.
100%. I think they're going to be an ultra exciting team to watch this year. And, I think this is the best team that Aaron Rodgers has ever played for. So, I think talent wise, there's no reason they can't be, Super Bowl contenders.
Yep, I agree with that. And then coming in at number 9, we've got the Dallas Cowboys, who are our third NFC team, which is pretty surprising. And we both don't really like their coaching staff. We don't like Mike McCarthy and Schottenheimer coming in offensive coordinator at all. We love Dan Quinn, obviously, who doesn't, but their offensive coaching staff is just terrible. And I think it's going to hold them back, and they're not going to be winning a Super Bowl. They might get far again because their division's decent, and the NFC in general is just not too great. So they're probably going to make it far, but I just don't see the Cowboys taking it all the way, which they could, because their roster is so good. The Cowboys roster is a Super Bowl roster, but their coaches are going to hold them back. They're not winning the Super Bowl, sadly.
Yeah, they've had a Super Bowl roster, it seems like, for the last 3 years. And, the fact that Mike McCarthy is still there and still, a head coach in 2023 is just pretty ridiculous. It's kind of a joke. And, that's the only thing that's holding them back. And it's crazy that it's crazy that he still has a job in the NFL in 2023. I mean, it's kind of a joke. It is. It's like, is this for real? But an absolutely stacked roster. But yeah, it all comes down to Mr. McCarthy, and that's just going to be the ultimate piece that they can't win it all with.
So much talent surrounding Dak with Pollard and Brandon Cooks coming in with CD. So much talent. But coming in at number 8, we've got the Miami Dolphins. Speaking of talent, just star-studded team all around, bringing in Jalen Ramsey with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and just so much stars and speed on this team. It's just going to be a track meet, and they're going to be really fun in the AFC. They're going to be competitive. It all really comes down to Tua's health. Hopefully their quarterback's healthy, that he's going to need to be on the field for them to succeed. Mike White's not going to cut it, but I truly think the Dolphins probably will have the best defense in the NFL. It's kind of a bold take to say that now, but I think in hindsight, looking back at it, I'm pretty positive of it. The Dolphins are going to have a high scoring defense, and Vic Fangio coming in and coaching that secondary with Jalen Ramsey coming in, and they just brought in a lot of pieces. And I mean, their defensive line's good. Their Jalen Phillips is going to take a big step up. He's one of my favorite pass rushers. I mean, I love the outlook for the Dolphins. I think they're going to be good. It all depends on if their quarterback's healthy.
Yeah, they definitely got the best secondary, in my opinion, in the league. Jalen Ramsey, Xavier Howard. They even got a really good pick with Cam Smith, and then Javon Holland at free safety. I mean, it's going to be hard to throw against that team because it is so star-studded. And then a sleeper up front with Christian Wilkins. He's such a stud. But yeah, they're so star heavy. They almost kind of remind me of the Rams, and it's I think they got a good coach. I think their philosophy last year was so good at the beginning of the season, and they kind of got exposed bad. But I think they're going to improve this year. So they're number 8 on our list. They have a lot of potential. There's no reason they couldn't be considered Super Bowl contenders. I mean, how do you stop Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle? Man, it's just crazy. I mean, they have the 2 fastest receivers in the NFL on the same team. But yeah, all depending on Tua's health, and he'll take him as far as he can.
And then coming in at number 7, it's a team that the Dolphins will be facing week 1. It's a team that the Dolphins are going to be competing against for the AFC, really just to make it out, to play the Chiefs, and that is the Los Angeles Chargers. They're a really exciting team. They were really fun last year with an injury-filled season. They still made the playoffs, and the outlook is just absolutely limitless this year with Justin Herbert and Quentin Johnson coming in. I think their upside is just crazy, complementing Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. I think all 3 of them that can eat in the same offense. I don't know why they couldn't in a Kellen Moore offense. And Eckler is the best receiving back we've seen in a long, long time. So I think the Chargers are fun. If that defense can stay healthy, like Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, Derwin James, if they can stay healthy, this Chargers team can win a Super Bowl and they can make a real run.
Cross our fingers. Let's hope they win the Super Bowl this year. Let's hope no injuries. But in all reality, Kellen Moore is, the ultimately the biggest win for the Chargers this offseason. I mean, it was so brutal watching Mr. your coach now. Joe Lombardi. He was so brutally painful to watch as a Charger fan last year. I mean, his lack of creativity, and I don't want to blame it all on him, but I mean, it really was. I mean, the dude could not figure out how to run the ball. He couldn't. You have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You have a generational talent, and you can't figure out how to throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field or draw up routes. I mean, there's a lot of injuries too, so it's not all his fault. But Kellen Moore is the key to success. And I'm so excited being a Chargers fan. I'm so excited to watch them this year. And adding Quentin Johnston is it's such a fun piece, to complement Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Getting Jalen Guyton back too is very underrated. He's come back from injury, and yeah, bearing health injuries with Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James. If those guys can stay on the field, there's no reason the Chargers can't win a Super Bowl. So we'll see.
Yep, that coaching staff's much improved, and another team that's coaching staff is much improved, especially in the offensive end, is the Baltimore Ravens, coming in at number 6. We both are really high on them, and we think that they're going to compete with the Bengals to win that division. And Lamar Jackson with Todd Monken coming in and them actually getting him his best offense he's ever played with in his NFL career. Even if individually they're not the best. Odell, Bateman, Duvernay, Zay Flowers, they all might have some question marks, but together that's a really good surrounding core with Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson and Dobbins. So I think the Ravens are going to be really good. You know that defense is going to be playing good, and I think this is the best defense they've had in a while with Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton at safety coming back, and their defensive line and pass rush is going to be nasty, and Ojabo coming back. I just think the Ravens are going to be really, really fun, and they're not really being talked about. It's a little scary. They're slept on.
Yeah, and to add one more piece of that defense who was so underestimated last year for him was Roquan Smith. He was such a difference maker. But yeah, the Ravens can ultimately, push for first place in that division. There's no reason they can't. I mean, they got a playoff spot last year with Tyler Huntley leading them the way. And I'm not dogging on Tyler Huntley. He's one of the best. I think he's one of the better backup quarterbacks. But I mean, they were struggling with a lot of injuries and were still able to push for a playoff spot last year. And that just kind of shows the resilience of that team. And they've only gotten better coaching staff. And they've improved their team even more this year. And Lamar Jackson's happy. Hopefully he stays healthy. But yeah, there's no reason these guys can't be the best team in the AFC. To be honest with you, we're both super excited to watch the Baltimore Ravens. They kind of got that gritty defense, so it's always going to be good. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. They're a fantastic team.
Yeah, that culture is just too good, and just you can't have them outside of the top 7. But coming in at number 5, it is a team that we are both collectively lower on than consensus, and it's the Buffalo Bills. They were pretty bad at the end of the year, and Josh Allen was playing some really careless football. He wasn't reading the defense. He was just throwing YOLO balls and just throwing a lot of picks and just fumbling a lot, and it didn't really seem like he was all there mentally at the end of the year. And there's some question marks for me. I don't want to rank them above the top 5 because there's some really, really good teams in the NFL this year, and the Bills scare me and they give me some red flags. And I think Gabe Davis being their wide receiver 2 is a question mark that I don't love, although they brought on Dalton Kincaid, and I think he can be wide receiver 2. I think that the Bills have some question marks that they haven't really answered that they do need to answer because they're not being realistic with themselves, and Josh Allen needs to step it up.
100%. Yeah, no, they're such a well-built team, but yeah, their wide receiver core just confuses me. Why Gabe Davis is still wide receiver 2, and in a league where these teams are all 3 really good wide receivers deep, you only have one. But yeah, I mean, obviously adding Dalton Kincaid is huge. He's going to be such a safety net for Josh Allen and help him out a lot. But yeah, Josh Allen's got to be a better player too. I mean, he was still obviously fantastic, but yeah, he was playing very careless football and he was throwing too many picks and he was putting his, he's hurting his team. He's trying to do too much. But they are a really good team. Obviously, they're going to compete. You can't not have them, at 5, at least in my opinion. But I thought they definitely could have done more to improve their team, and I don't think they did. So I don't think they had the best offseason. I think they did bring in some nice pieces, but I would have liked to have seen more.
Yeah, definitely could have added to that defense in the secondary in general.
Oh, yeah.
Coming in at number 4, we've got the San Francisco 49ers, just a scary, scary team, man, with, in my opinion, the smartest coach in the NFL, Kyle Shanahan, and that offense with Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Purdy when he's healthy. I mean, the 49ers, the sky's the limit, even with Trey Lance or Sam Darnold starting out the season as a starter. I am not worried. It's the Niners. That team is good. I am a little worried, I will say, about that offensive line. They haven't replaced Mike McGlinchey after losing him. The interior offensive line's terrible, terrible, terrible. They didn't really address it at all offseason. I don't know what was up with that. Their draft was terrible. I'm not going to commend their draft at all. Their secondary isn't great. They brought in some pieces that they reached with in the draft that could help in the secondary, but even then they needed to add more to really be a real Super Bowl solidified contender. But they're going to be great. I'm just nitpicking their great team, but the Niners are going to be competitive and they're going to be dominant.
Yeah, as long as Kyle Shanahan's the coach, they're going to be in every single game. And, it's a copycat league and everyone tries to copy what Shanahan does and no one can. I mean, he is just an ultimate guru at what he does. And I mean, the way he schemes up run designs and passing plays, I mean, he just makes it so easy on his team to where, guys like Brock Purdy, you really aren't, that talented of a player look amazing and can come in and play really good football and lead their team into the playoffs. And obviously adding Christian McCaffrey was just such an awesome move for them. He just fits their culture and their team so well. But yeah, as long as you have Kyle Shanahan at coach, you're going to be a playoff contender and possibly Super Bowl contender every single year.
And then we've got our number one NFC team coming in at number 3, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles, who just lost in the Super Bowl. Great team, though. I mean, they brought in one of the best draft hauls you'll see for a stacked Super Bowl contending team. I mean, it's just unfair what Howie Roseman's doing with that roster, bringing in DeAndre Swift for nothing. I mean, the Eagles are going to be so good. They're going to be right back up in Super Bowl contention, and we both think they probably will be in the Super Bowl this year again. So the sky's the
Yeah,
limit with the Eagles again, and I'm excited for them.
yeah, I don't see any team that can really go in there and really compete with the Eagles other than the 49ers. So, and I think the Eagles, just have the better quarterback play and have, a little bit better built roster and a little bit more top talent, really where it matters in the trenches and, on both sides of the trenches. Their offensive line is the best in the league. And then their defensive line is the best in the league. And then Jalen Hurts is just such a young, ascending, great quarterback. And I think there's a very good chance they'll be back in the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, just such a good team, and Howie Roseman keeps that roster just up perfectly. So,
Howard
uh,
Roseman, probably the best GM in the NFL, in my humble opinion. That dude just hits on I don't even know how many picks every year. It's just amazing, and people seem to follow him, and just the way go look at his drafts. I mean, you just almost just want to applaud the dude because it's just so amazing every year.
oh, it's not even a question. He's earned that. He's the best GM in the NFL for sure. It's yeah,
Mhm.
100%. Coming in at number 2, we've got the Cincinnati Bengals. I wanted to put them at 1, but out of respect for the Chiefs, we couldn't do it. We had to put Chiefs at 1. But man, I think the Cincinnati Bengals might be my Super Bowl favorite when it's all said and done. This team is really exciting, and Lou Anarumo is just the most slept on coach in the whole NFL, and he'll have that defense playing great. And they brought in some decent pieces, and like Miles Murphy has a lot of potential in that D line, and I think Joseph Osai is a great piece that no one talked about last year that I think has a lot of potential on that D line as well. So I love the outlook for the Bengals, and I think that offense is just one of the best we've seen, and that Burrow to Chase connection is legendary. And I just think the Bengals are going to be right up there again within the Super Bowl discussion again.
Oh yeah, and they've only improved their team. They had such a good draft, and they stayed there. They stuck and pick and just got absolute crazy, tremendous value with Miles Murphy. And they got one of the best receiving cores in the whole NFL. Burrow to Chase, Burrow to Higgins, Burrow to Boyd. It's just so good. And then Joe Mixon as a complimentary running back is just fantastic. They've really improved that offensive line from the last couple of years for Joe Burrow too. And then, like you said, their coaching staff is so slept on. To give props to Zach Taylor too, because he's just come into the NFL and taken it by storm. The Bengals were one of the worst teams in the NFL, and now they're competing for the Super Bowl every year. So, just such a young, exciting team with still so much potential to go.
Yeah, that shows you how generational Joe Burrow is as well. Just what a great pick and player
Mhm.
he is. But yeah, that like you said, that offensive line is transformed, just absolutely transformed. They have a really good, commendable 5, honestly, like 8 linemen that can play. They have really good deep offensive line now, and they've done a great job with that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And then at 1, we had to put them there out of respect. The Kansas City Chiefs, who've won the last 2 Super Bowls, just dominant. We're AFC West fans, so we've felt the wrath of the Chiefs for years. They're just such a good football team and so hard to
Yeah.
scheme against. You throw anything at them, it doesn't affect them. They'll find a way, and they always do. And they're just such a good football team. And Patrick Mahomes is the best to ever do it. And I'm excited to watch the Chiefs again, man. They're gonna be dominant.
Oh yeah, it's painful being a fan of a different AFC West team and having to go against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. As long as they have those three, or even just those two. I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes and it's Andy Reid. They'll make anything work. They could have the worst roster in the NFL, and they could still be in the Super Bowl because they're just that creative, that generational. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, we've never seen anything like him. I mean, that dude goes out there and you just scratch your head at what he can do. It just doesn't make sense. And then Andy Reid is just such the perfect coach for him. Just the play calling, it just meshes so well together, and it just sucks so bad being being a Chargers and a Broncos fan. We feel it every year. We think we're so close, and then we have to play the Chiefs twice a year, and they've won the division I think the last 7 years in a row, and it hasn't been fun. It hasn't been fun, but yeah, just out of respect, you can't not put the Chiefs at number one.
Yeah, just the best football team, really, when it comes down to it. Maybe not on paper, but when you think about Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, that's all you need to know. So,
Yep.
Kansas City Chiefs are going to come in at 1, and this was really fun. I love talking about the outlooks for every team, and we're going to be doing a lot more of these videos. We're going to be doing deep dive videos for every team and division this whole offseason. So make sure to tune in to the NFL Seekers podcast for more NFL content.
Yes, sir. I'm excited. Yep. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify. If you like the visual, you'll catch us on YouTube. That's always fun. That's how I like to watch. But yeah, we're going to be getting into a lot more NFL stuff, a lot more fantasy content coming too. But yeah, this is a fun episode.
All right. Stay tuned to NFL Seekers podcast all summer. All right. Peace.